Hey, it's Thursday, May 21st, 2020, and you are tuned into the Rebel News live stream. Now, normally the big boss man himself, Ezra Levent, is in this chair at this time, but Ezra's working on a super special project. So every Tuesday and Thursday, I, David Menzies, am joined by my guest co-host, Sheila Gunn-Reid, out in Alberta, and we chat about, well, the things that are in the news. And Sheila, how you doing? It looks like you have found an underground barber. I mean, that is quite a do.
Oh, David, thank you. No, I just straightened it. I didn't cut my hair. I didn't do anything with my hair. I just straightened it because it's getting a little out of control. I sent, it's funny. I sent our producer, Justin, a video last night, and I don't know if he wants to show it or not. Maybe he shouldn't because it'll demonetize the whole stream. But you are Dr. Steve Brule. You know who Dr. Steve Brule is on Adult Swim? Maybe he could just pull up an image of that eventually. But yeah, I'm glad that you're wearing the hat. The hat used to bother me, but yeah, like the women at CBC, I am frightened and startled. There you are.
Oh, no.
There you are.
Yes, it's just, you know what, folks? I know it's against the law, and I know John Tory will sick his bylaw enforcement officers, the pandemic police and the coronavirus cops, and it'll cost me $880. But you know something? I'm willing to pay the $880 fine if there's a barber out there that wants to get in touch with me and we do something illicit. And hey, what am I saying, Sheila? I forgot about our campaign, Fight the Fines, in which we go to bat for those who are unjustly fined. I think that would be an unjust fine. I mean, like, as a trained broadcast professional, I'm supposed to look good to the people, and I'm looking horrid. And as you said, folks, I don't know if you know this or not, but Sheila was actually referring to a real-life event 2 weeks ago at Queen's Park, where a CBC reporter in high heels ran backwards so fast, I think she could have qualified for the Olympic team, went into Queen's Park Crescent, where cars come around the bend at 70 clicks sometimes. And when I asked her what was wrong, she said it was my hair. It was frightening and confusing her. So
it's becoming a public safety issue, definitely.
Yeah, so just for the CBC. Yes. Forgive me, folks. This is where Sheila Gunn-Reid chimes in and says exactly what it is we're up to in this 1 hour of monkey business.
Yes, it is a definite 1 hour of monkey business. This is your chance to interact with each other in the live chat, and it's always very lively over there. I see friendships forming and people uniting over common causes in our live chat. I actually, after the stream is over, as I'm going about the rest of my work, I always go back and read as many of the comments as I can. There are a lot, but I do try to read the live chat after the fact just to see what people are saying. But it's also a chance for you to help support the work that we do here at Rebel News, and you can do that by doing something called a super chat. YouTube takes a portion of it, but we get the majority of it, and you can donate on your screen there. There's a little dollar sign, and you can donate a little money there, and what that will do is it'll highlight your question or comment to David and I, and we'll read it. We'll discuss it if we have time. If it's a question, we'll do our best to answer it. And it's a way that you can willingly support the work that we do, because we will never take any of Justin Trudeau's money or money from any government, because how can we hold the government to account when we are beholden to them to keep the lights on?
Indeed, and we appreciate everything you can send our way. And folks, just before we got on air, I was chatting with Sheila Gunn-Reid about the lovely Kamala Harris, who is today introducing a resolution condemning such terms as Wuhan virus as being racist, and it should be avoided. Sheila, what struck me about this latest Democratic virtue signaling is how ludicrous it is. When you look at diseases throughout the centuries, they typically get named for where the outbreak took place. For example, Lyme disease, that came out of Lyme, Connecticut. So Are we supposed to come up with a new name because this is anti-Connecticut residents if we say Lyme disease, West Nile virus, German measles, Spanish flu, and on it goes. So I don't think, looking at historically how we've named diseases, this is racist. And here's the other important point. There was a huge distinction between the Mandarins in Beijing and the Chinese people who suffer the most because of their leadership. This is not anti-Chinese. This is anti-Chinese regime. This is anti-Beijing. And I think it's important, in all my reports, Sheila, for the last several weeks, I will not say COVID-19 or coronavirus. I call it the Wuhan virus. And here's the other part of my argument. We should not forget that the trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars of economic damage unleashed upon the world originated, like the other two pandemics in the last decade, in China. We can't forget that. And to whitewash the misdeeds of the Beijing communist regime, it makes me wonder, is Kamala, and it's a question I pose to Justin Trudeau as well, is she more on the side of the Mandarins in Beijing or her own country? What do you think, Sheila?
David, when you brought this up to me just like seconds before our mics went down, before we went on air, I thought you were making it up. Like, I thought it was so crazy that it could not be real. So I quickly Googled it and found a credible source, Fox News, for this. And yeah, she says she's introducing the bill on behalf of a number of Democrats to condemn all manifestations or expressions of racism, xenophobia, discrimination, anti-Asian sentiment, scapegoating, and ethnic or religious intolerance, and to expeditiously investigate and document all credible reports of hate crimes, incidents, and threats against the Asian American and Pacific Islander community in the United States. The resolution claims a study found over 400 cases of anti-Asian discrimination related to COVID-19 between February 7th and March 9th. They want not just the Wuhan virus, but don't call it the Chinese virus or the Kung flu.
You know, Sheila, let me stop you right there. Kung flu. This is why I said, going back to last year, that my beloved periodical from my childhood and teen years, Mad Magazine, went out of business last year, folks. How can you parody the modern world? How can you parody the political class in this day and age when you see the damage, both health-wise and especially economic-wise, that the Kung flu is causing, and you have somebody like Kamala Harris thinking that job one is to enlist the word police? Are you kidding me? Kung flu bugs are, I mean, that's just a goof term. Like, not even I use that in the reports. That's kind of like what a stand-up comedian would say. Well, what a stand-up comedian would have said in the old days, I think today you're brought before a human rights commission, right?
Well, yeah, they said that this is all part of Trump's inappropriate and racist efforts to rebrand the disease.
Of course.
You know, if I didn't know better, I would say that the Chinese government has written this motion, because that's what it does. Trump is saying that this is a Chinese disease to put the responsibility for everything that's happening to the entire world on the Chinese government. Their lies, their obfuscations, their hiding what was going on, and now we're all paying the price for it. That's what Trump is trying to do when he refers to it as the Chinese virus. When you say coronavirus, that can be any number of coronaviruses. When you call it COVID-19, that sterilizes all the other things that happened around this virus that allowed it to spread to the rest of the world. And those things are the responsibility of the Chinese government and then the World Health Organization that acted as a tool to legitimize CCP propaganda that allowed the virus to spread outside of the hot zone of Wuhan. Why are we pretending like Wuhan wasn't the hot zone for this? Like, what good does that do? So yeah, I mean, Kamala Harris, does the CCP have some sort of compromising information on her? Why is she acting as a propaganda tool of the Chinese government right now?
No, you're 100% right, Sheila. This whole idea of COVID-19, this was a sanitized for your protection term that doesn't suggest anything Chinese, doesn't suggest anything about the origin of the disease. And I would seriously like to ask Kamala Harris, in the presumption of in for a penny, in for a pound, like I said at the beginning, do we now rename Lyme disease? I mean, there might be Connecticutans. Is that how you pronounce people that live in Connecticut? Well, if it isn't, I just made it up. Is this offensive to Connecticutans? And West Nile virus, is this offensive to Africans along the Nile River where that particular disease was born? I mean, this is ludicrous. And here's the other thing, Sheila. Why just this one disease coming out of China? If she's not into rebranding the other ones, well, if so, why? Why does China get favored nation treatment when that is the origin of the disease? And like I said, let us never forget who has inflicted this plague upon the entire planet, Sheila. They shouldn't get a pass. They should be called out on every single time. And that is why I am continuing to call this the Wuhan virus. And another thing, Sheila, Kamala, every time I hear Kamala, I think of that WWF wrestler, Kamala.
Yeah.
I don't know if Mr. Producer can get an image for those of a certain age that weren't around. I guess Kamala was in the 80s.
90s.
It was in the 90s too? Okay, then. But... well, as Mr. Producer works on that, I can't keep but think of, this gigantic 400-pound bruiser. There he is.
There he is.
And every time I hear
perpetuating
Kamala
stereotypes
Harris,
of his own.
This is the image. Although I bet you the Kamala has probably more political sense in his noggin. And I'm trying to think, Sheila, what was it? Can any of our viewers tell us what was it that terrified Kamala? It was kind of an elephant and mouse situation. There was something that would make him run away. And I should know this, being the wrestling fan I am, but I'm blanking. So if anyone can please send us an email or a text about what was it that scared Kamala to death. Maybe it's the same thing that'll scare Kamala Harris to death. Well, not to death. We don't want to go that far, but scare her away from politics. I'll settle for that, Sheila.
Yeah, and it's funny, too, that Kamala Harris says that she's doing this to help Asians, to help them, to help the Chinese people. By what? Like, the Chinese people, as you so rightly put out, or as you so rightly point out, are the first people oppressed by the Chinese Communist government. They were the first people dying of this disease because the Chinese Communist government was hiding information about it. They were the ones that were then used as, I would suggest, biological economic warfare when their own government allowed them to get on planes and head off to infect the rest of the world. They were basically dehumanized and used as a tool to inflict economic devastation on the rest of the world so that the Chinese government didn't have to suffer it alone. And that's who Kamala Harris continues to oppress when she defends the Chinese Communist government's their line of saying that this isn't the Wuhan flu. That's what she's doing. We do have a pile of super chats, though, already. Yes. And I just want to point out, too, that I do, like I said, read the comments and I go back and read the live chat. And some people are saying that I'm too mean to you, David. And
I saw that one.
Yeah, and they might be right. Let me just say that I only tease because I care. David is one of my favorite people on the face of the earth, the nicest guy you'll ever meet. Probably the hardest working journalist in the entire country. He's always somewhere, and he's a real man of the people. So if I seem as though I'm hard on David, Well, I am hard on David, but I care deeply about David, and I'm just so proud to work with him at the company. So,
you're so kind, Sheila. And you being hard on me, that's just part and parcel of our, what I like to call our groovy kind of love.
Yeah, we have a Donnie and Marie kind of thing going. Okay. Anyways, let's get to some of these super chats, because that's about as nice as I'm going to be today. We've got one from Connie McDonald, gives us $2. $2 Canadian, says donate just like this. Thank you. Got one from Michigan 12, gives us $2 Canadian. No super chat. Thank you very much. We've got one from Hard Money, gives us $5. Says COVID Bill 38 in Newfoundland has put the provincial government into a power trip. I did send it to Rebel Tips. Hopefully you can report on this. I will look into that. I'm CC'd on all the Rebel Tips. Actually, I regret saying that on air, because now people are going to send me crazy things. But I will look into that, definitely. I know that in Alberta we have something called Bill 10, which gives the government broad overreaching powers, and they're seeing a lot of pushback from that. And they said that when the legislature resits, they're going to address some of the concerns that the public had about Bill 10. So, it's funny. If you have a responsive government, they will address the concerns of the people. I'm not sure if Newfoundland is that way, though. We've got one from Margaret King.
Sheila, if I can just interject here. I think our boss, Ezra Levent, nailed it so well when he said a few weeks ago that with all these overreaching powers, with all these measures that are against the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, certain governments, certain politicians in this country acting on the safety issues of Wuhan virus, they got a little taste of totalitarianism. And you know what? They like that taste. They liked it. Yeah. Power is very addictive. And this is why we have to push back. We have to call out overreaching, and why I love things like every Saturday in front of Queen's Park, hundreds and hundreds of patriotic Ontarians coming out and voicing their displeasure that they can't get back to work and back to school and now back to camp, as it turns out. So, I think that's part of the problem. You give them a little, and it's like a drug. It's like crack. They want more and more. They like the idea of them being in charge of us, to the point that it strips us of our basic rights and liberties.
Yeah, it's a lot easier to just make laws and legislation with the stroke of a pen by making alterations to some obscure public health act than it is to actually have to debate the issues in the Legislative Assembly. It's, they can rule without all the messy parts of democracy. Yes. We've got one from Marguerite King, gives us $5 Canadian. Where are the petition numbers on Dr. Tam so far? Thanks for your great work, the entire team. I don't know if maybe producer Justin can bring that up, the Fire Tam petition, so we can have a look at just how many people have signed that petition. Wow.
Fantastic.
Oh, our goal is 60,000 signatures, and we're like 9,500 away from that. And I've got another video coming out. I think it's today. I filmed it yesterday, so it should be coming out today, about Dr. Tam and her admission that she actually probably should have advised the cabinet to close the borders much sooner than she did. But it's going to be. She pulled a Justin Trudeau and said, "Oh, my bad. But it's a learning experience for all of us." Sorry, lady, no. We were saying that you need to close the border, and you called us all racists for it. So no, it's not a learning thing for me. It's you should be fired, Theresa Tam. And actually, if she had any shame, she would quit.
And Sheila, you know what? There's some critical mass growing here. The front page of the Toronto Sun today was calling on Dr. Tam to resign. So it's not just us, folks, and it's not just you, our viewership. In other areas, there is pressure mounting on, I'm going to say it, this incompetent doctor, and likely a doctor that is more beholden to the politics of the World Health Organization, which is a puppet of China. And, I know, that makes me racist, I guess, saying that. No, bunk. You'll even find Asian people espousing the same point of view I do. So, the sooner she leaves, the better for all of us, Sheila. Oh, are you frozen?
Asian people have been saying this long. Yeah. Oh, am I frozen?
No.
Am I back? I'm not back.
You look. Yeah, I can. For a second, it looked like you were either frozen or you're doing your Sears mannequin pose. There. Okay. Anyways, keep going.
I was rendered speechless. No, actually, Asian people were the first people to say that the World Health Organization was getting this wrong. Yes. Hong Kong, Taiwan. Yeah. So, are they racist? Taiwanese, I guess, are ethnically Chinese, or a vast majority of them are ethnically Chinese. So are they racist against the Chinese? I suppose, by that argument. But it's funny how we start the parade, we lead the parade, and then all these other people fall in line once we tell everybody it's okay to say these things.
Good point.
We've been saying, fire Dr. Tam for a month. We've been saying that she's been incompetent since the beginning of this, that she was making bad decisions, that she needed to close the border. We've been saying those things. People have been calling us names. We did not kowtow to that pressure, and now it's okay for other people to say those things. I'm not going to take it personally, though, because I'm just happy to have other people come around to our way of thinking.
Well, Sheila, just give yourself a Steve Lombardi pat on the back. There you go.
Good job, Sheila. Okay. We've got one from my friend Justin at Proud Boys Calgary. Gives us $2 Canadian.
Thank you.
He says, Ginny the flu, more names. Daily reminder, CCP must be destroyed. Amen. We've got one from Box Tony 70S, $10 Canadian, says thank you. You're welcome. Unjust Untrudeau gives us $2 Canadian. Kamala. I think snakes, David. Jake the snake.
Oh, it was Jake the snake.
Yes.
You know what? That snake, because I was originally thinking Jake the snake, because we know that was Andre the Giant's weakness when they first had a crossover and Jake the Snake came to the ring, and Andre the Giant went into a corner, and all he could say is Bobby, meaning his manager, Bobby the Brain.
Yeah, Bobby the Brain Heenan.
So was Kamala too.
It was Andre the Giant's birthday just a couple of days ago. I think he would have been 74.
Wow.
Yeah, I posted about it on Facebook. I thought it was either Jake the Snake that scared Kamala, or maybe the model Rick Martel, his cologne. What was it called? Arrogance? I thought maybe that, but then I got confused because no, he sprayed Jake the Snake in the eyes with his cologne. Do you remember that? And then he was blind for a little bit.
You know what?
Taking everybody a walk down wrestling memory lane.
I just had an epiphany, though, Sheila. I don't think it was either the clone or the snake, although I'll research this. Wasn't there a storyline where the Undertaker would come out with a coffin that it was a supersized coffin?
Yes.
That would fit Kamala, and I think that's what freaked them out. Yes. I think that's it. So if anyone else can research that while we're on the air, please. There's Andre the Giant.
Oh, there it is.
Truly a gentle giant,
Yes, it's great because this is words to live by. I don't like to speak badly of people. I've grown up thinking and being told that if you cannot say something nice about someone, you should not say anything at all. But I must break that rule in this case because I hate Hulk Hogan very much. He is a big, ugly goon, and I want to squash his face. And happy birthday, eighth wonder of the world. And
can I tell you something, Sheila? Not to make this like a wrestling show, but WrestleMania 3 in 1987, I drove down to the Pontiac Silverdome in Michigan. And that moment, when people, and you see all these retrospectives right now because there's no sports to cover, the greatest goals, the greatest saves, the greatest touchdowns. One of the greatest moments I ever saw, not because of necessarily the moment itself, but for what happened in the arena. So there was over 91,000 packed into the Silverdome. And when Hulk Hogan picked up Andre the Giant to body slam him, which has never been, and which is an incredible athletic feat. Sheila, everyone, this is before iPhones and all that, so people had cameras and flash cameras, those disposable ones.
Yeah.
91,000 flash bulbs were going off at the same time, and the light effect, the ambient light that was created was surreal. It was like you were in another dimension, and I will never forget that. That's probably the greatest WrestleMania of all time to this day, number 3, but I digress.
I think we have a VHS of that WrestleMania in this house somewhere. I don't think we have a VHS player anymore, but I hung on to the tape. We've got more. Oh, David. The lure of the animal is back, the Kavorka. We've got one. This one was posted, I think, as on Tuesday, but we didn't get around to reading it. Annalisa S. gives us $6.99 Canadian. Who's that hottie on screen with you, Sheila? Keep up the great work. Love you both.
Wow, you know what?
Kavorka.
There is an Annalisa at the gym I go to in Richmond Hill, and I wonder if that's her, and which would really enhance the, what did you call it, the Kevorkian effect? Or
yeah, the Kevorkian, yes, please. Put us all in our misery, Dr. Death.
You know, because that Annalisa would have seen me in my gym tog, so that's kind of like added value.
Yeah.
So maybe, I don't know if it is or it isn't, but.
Yeah, the Kevorkian effect. For the suicide doctor who invented the suicide machine for assisted suicide. Yes, if I see you in shorts, please hook me up to the Kevorkian machine. Give me the Kevorkian effect. Put me out of my misery. No, it's the Kavorka. The lure of the animal. Okay, we've got one from John T. Singus, gives us $2 Canadian, says, confirms an earlier super chat saying Kamala was scared of Jake's snakes. Perfect. We've got one from C182OPR, gives us $2 Canadian. Chicken pox is speciesism. Free all poultry now. Don't give the Democrats any ideas, because they will. They're that crazy. Just when I think they're not, like when, no, I always think they're crazy. They're just generally full of bad ideas.
So that would include swine flu and avian flu too, in terms of speciesism. We can't, you know, we're going to have to come up with fake words like Kodak and Xerox to describe diseases.
Yeah, things that are long, long gone. Yeah. We've got one from Basil. The Pumpin' Seagull gives us $2 Canadian. The only thing left to do is for the West to separate. You're not going to get a lot of pushback from me on that one. We've got Vito T. Anthony. I say he gives us $10 Canadian, says, I say Menzies for President of the United States and Sheila for VP and Miss Universe for the lovely outfit today. Oh, thank you. I'm wearing denim on denim because that's the Alberta uniform. Maybe Scheer can lend you his American citizenship. David, since he isn't going to give it up. What a non-story, by the way. Everybody's up in arms because Andrew Scheer didn't give up his American citizenship. Why would you give up something so valuable? And secondarily, and I know a lot of people are like, well, you know, if you want to be the prime minister, you should just be loyal to Canada, and that's fine. But he's not the prime minister now. So, and he's never going to be. So who cares? Why are we even talking about this? But I'm pretty sure Elizabeth May wants to be the prime minister, and she was born in the United States. So why isn't anybody talking about that?
But Sheila,
because he's a conservative.
I have to disagree with you with Andrew Scheer because, well, first of all, you know, I have some problems with this whole concept of dual citizenship, but it's a reality, so we have to deal with it. I think the issue with Andrew Scheer was him calling out a liberal for having dual citizenship, the name of whom escapes me at the moment, but I know he did. And that is hypocrisy. When you yourself are a dual citizen and you're going, oh, look at that person, you can't trust her, she's a dual citizen. That's garbage, you know, and he should have known better. And clearly, so there's one of two things. Either he forgot he was a dual citizen, I don't know if you believe that, Sheila, or he was hoping nobody would ever find out. Well, I think it's number two. He was hoping nobody ever found out, and we found out. And once again, you fumbled the ball, Mr. Scheer. What? Just terrible.
Well, I agree with that. I just don't understand why anybody cares right now, except for the fact that we're just looking for reasons not to talk about Justin Trudeau in the mainstream media.
Well, yeah,
I mean,
I agree. Yeah.
Andrew Scheer is not going to be prime minister. He's not even going to lead the Conservative Party of Canada. He's basically headed back to being just a regular old MP again in Regina. So fairly inconsequential. Who cares if he didn't give up his American citizenship? We've got yet still more super chats because these people know that we beat Ezra Levant most days. Although I have noticed that Ezra's constant lamenting about how we beat him on his live stream has encouraged people to donate to him out of pity. So, I guess that's something.
And we're really earning it because, Sheila, I think you complained off camera once that a lot of the super chats that are coming in, people are using 3- and 4-syllable words. That's really, taxing your vocabulary. But you're a trooper. Yeah. You read them out, and that is just fantastic in this day and age of the Wuhan virus.
Yes, you bet. If you're going to put the word watermelon or encyclopedia into your super chat, I'm going to need you to donate more. We've got one from Adam G. Gives us $2 Canadian, and he doesn't have a super chat, but thank you very much. We've got one from my friend Craig McDonald with the cutest little kids in the world. He gives us $13.99 Canadian, and he says, "Hi guys, thoughts on whether Jason Kenney will be successful in installing Alberta's own chief firearms officer, and will that CFO refuse to confiscate Albertans' firearms?" I would not be surprised if Jason Kenney actually does do that. He did announce yesterday that he's doing other things that the federal government won't do. We as Albertans, we are putting what's called an Alberta checkpoint in our international arrivals at the Edmonton and Calgary airports, because we know eventually Justin Trudeau is just going to open up the borders to another free-for-all. And eventually there will also be an Alberta checkpoint at Coots. So that's our busiest land border crossing with Montana. And this Alberta checkpoint is going to be staffed by Alberta Health Services officials, and they're going to use infrared thermal temperature checks and other health screening that we know the feds aren't doing, and they're implementing advanced health and sanitation protocols all across the airport that aren't in place because the feds aren't doing it. So Jason Kenney is doing the things that the federal government isn't going to do or should be doing, and we're just leading the charge on our own. And so will he install our own chief firearms officer? Probably. Will that CFO refuse to confiscate Albertans' firearms? I don't know if that's his job to do that. I guess Jason Kenney would have to advise the Crown not to prosecute us for not turning in our firearms in accordance with federal legislation. And I guess that would fall on his very red Tory Justice Minister, Doug Schweitzer, who is not a fan of Rebel News, if I recall correctly, but it would fall on him. So I'd love to hear Jason Kenney make a pronouncement that he would advise the Crown not to prosecute, but I haven't heard that yet.
Well, I'll tell you this much, Sheila, if the Alberta CFO started carrying out Justin Trudeau's bidding in Alberta, he would be the most unpopular person in the province. And that's saying something, given that I believe Rachel Notley still resides in Alberta these days.
We've still got more super chats. We got one from Ali C, $5 Canadian, you're number one. David, that's both of us. We're both number one. Thank you. We've got one from Kane, not applicable, gives us $5 Canadian. China is not a race, it's a nationality. If I hear someone calling China, I suppose, racist, I will roll my eyes again. M gives us $5 Canadian. When you win the right to ask the Prime Minister questions, what will your first question be? Thank you for being the voice of truth and reason. I suppose this is a question for David, because David has actually asked the Prime Minister a question before. So how would you answer that one, David?
Yeah, no, for a while there, along with you and Kian, I've gone onto those phone chats that are supposedly randomly generated amongst journalists. We never get through, but the same old party faithful in the media media party do get through. So it must be a cosmic coincidence, kind of like winning Lotto Max, isn't it, without even having to buy a ticket. But the number one question, because nobody in the media party will dare ask him and offend His Royal Highness, is simply, 6 years ago in Toronto, you said to an assembly of, well, it was women only, because he is our feminist prime minister, even though he likes to grope women that don't want groping, that China is the basic kind of dictatorship that he admires in terms of getting things done. Mr. Prime Minister, given the trillions upon trillions of economic damage, given the death toll, given the number of infected by the Wuhan virus that came out of China, is this the nation that you still admire for its basic dictatorship? I would love to see him fumble and stumble. Here's a question to you, Sheila. What do you think his answer, if I actually did, invoke the Christmas miracle and get through to Justin Trudeau, what do you think his answer would be to that very question?
I think he wouldn't even come close to answering it. I don't think that he would even have an answer. I think that he would do everything he could to avoid saying anything bad about China, a country that has kidnapped 2 Canadians and held them for over 500 days as political prisoners, a country that has infected the world with a virus that has shut down our economies and has killed our old people. I think he would still say something about his admiration for the Chinese people, but that's not what you asked about. You asked about the Chinese government. Yep. He would somehow make it about an attack from you on the Chinese people that he felt he needed to defend them from, as opposed to the tyranny of the Chinese state. He would absolutely not answer. We'd see a House of Commons style performance from him. Yeah,
you are right. I would use the exact same question as my follow-up question, because you're allowed to, and he wouldn't answer that. It's just like we've seen it with his minions. I mean, when Keean Bexley out west was asking the Minister of the Environment, why is Saudi oil imported into Canada not subject to the carbon tax? He didn't answer that question. And then Keean asked the identical question. He didn't answer that question. And then the third time he tried to answer, so I think security came out along to usher Keean out of the building. And folks, that is their playbook. It's kind of like me saying to Sheila, hey, Sheila, what kind of car do you drive? And Sheila answers, my curtains are green. That's what it is. They are so arrogant, and they know that there's going to be no media frenzy, no dog pile-on, right, Sheila? Because the other, paid trained SEALs in the media, they're just going to look upon us as being the skunk to the garden party. How dare you ask, such an offensive question? You're supposed to be asking Prime Minister Trudeau what shampoo he's using during this pandemic, and are you worried about burnout? These are real questions, by the way, folks. I'm not making this up, right? So you're right, Sheila. He would not answer that question, even when asked twice.
But I think when you ask twice, it reveals a lot by him not answering. That speaks volumes as much as any fake answer he would have given you. By the way, my curtains are actually green. Just in case you wanted to know, I wouldn't have been lying. We've got one from, let's see. Oh, okay. We've got one from Quid Nunk. $5 Canadian. Ford has been as heavy-handed as any leftist during the lockdown. The left paints him as far right. Is conservatism effectively dead in Ontario? David, what do you think?
Well, you know what? I'll dial it into our most recent campaign, OpenSummerCamp.com. It's a petition that I'm going to deliver to Doug Ford, because, as you told me a couple of days ago, Sheila, summer camps are open in Alberta, but so why not in Ontario? And think of how nonsensical this is. Going by the science, how many people in this province have died of the Wuhan virus? Well, it rhymes with hero, folks. 0. In fact, only 2 people in the entire province during this pandemic were admitted to the ICU, and they were both released okay. So there's that. The second thing is, what are these kids supposed to do? Go to the playground? Oh, what am I saying, Sheila? I forgot all that police caution tape over the slides and monkey bars and the swings. No, you can't do that, and you can't play sports in a field unless you're related to one another. So that's off the table. And here's the most perversely ironic thing of all. Why is sleepover camps for young, healthy children that could make nothing but beneficial use of all that sunny vitamin D and getting exercise and interacting with other kids, why is that off limits when the death toll is 0, but we have a form of sleepover camp for the most elderly members of society in long-term care homes where more than 80% of the deaths have occurred. These are death traps. Those sleepover camps, according to the Premier, that's okay. But the one for the kids, where the kids aren't going to get sick and the kids aren't going to die, that's wrong. So the message is, you stay in your basement, you punk, and you play video games in the dark and don't interact with anyone. And I want to bring up another thing, Sheila. The biggest lie that we have seen out of this pandemic, whether it's uttered by Justin Trudeau or John Tory or Premier Ford, is we are all in this together. What bullshit. You're telling me that the kids in Doug Ford's extended family, when they go up to the cottage on Fawn Lake that practically looks like a summer camp, you think they're being denied water sports and playing volleyball and going for a hike? But for the rest of us, Sheila, you can take a hike. That's what Doug Ford is saying. And it's the same with Justin Trudeau. Don't go to your cottage. I'm off to Quebec to my cottage. John Tory, don't practice social distancing and wear a mask. And then the maskless John Tory poses with 10 healthcare workers cheek to jowl, and of course doesn't get the 8 ticket. The hypocrisy is off the chart. So folks, I hope you can take a few minutes and sign that petition, because there's no reason that summer camp should be banned in this province this year.
What's the website for the petition, David? Sorry?
It's Open Summer Camp. I see it just launched a couple of days ago. We've already got more than 3,300 signatures. Our goal is 25,000. Please, folks, help me get it up to 25,000. Even if you don't have kids, even if you have, well, we all don't have wonderful memories of summer camp. I mean, the Friday the 13th franchise is based on that, I suppose. But even if that's the case, for the kids, sign that petition.
Yeah, that is a very interesting statistic that nobody under the age of 20 has died of the coronavirus at all.
Yep.
And yet it is the people who are under the age of 20 who are really the ones who are experiencing the largest containment of their regular life. Kids love to go outside and play and be social. Old people, maybe they don't like to go out so much. They like to, their lifestyle is a little less active. And for me, as you were talking about summer camp, I was thinking about the inner city kids. The kids who go to the Boys and Girls Club, who go use those programs, because for them, these summer camp programs that are targeted at vulnerable kids who you could make a new peer group at camp or church camp or Boys and Girls Club camp, or you could fall into a gang because that's also in the neighborhood. This keeps these kids on the straight and narrow, exposes them to things that they would never be exposed to, fosters new interests in these kids that they would never learn of in the city. I mean, for a lot of these kids, this is their one and only time to get out of the city. They don't get to go to the cottage all the time like Doug Ford's family. And those kids are going to be hurt. It's not kids like mine who are just running wild most of the day. It's the most vulnerable kids who are going to pay the price for this lockdown. It's at the same time, we're letting in Ontario 25% of the prison population out into the world while locking up our children as though they're criminals. It's really quite appalling, and I hope everybody signs that petition.
Sheila, you make an excellent point, because with these kids cooped up indoors, especially over the summer months, they've had no school for a few months now too. Yep. People are understandably worrying about the psychological damage, the lack. I mean, kids, they're not little pods to be plugged into a computer all day. They should be interacting with other kids. It's called being human, quite frankly. And as resentment grows, that would be another driver for, why should I play by the rules? Look at these gangbangers down there that are, trying to recruit me. They seem to have a nice car and they've got gold necklaces and what have you. Why should I stay indoors? This is the risk. So you're quite right.
Also, fun fact, I don't know if you've ever seen the guy on a buffalo clips on YouTube where there's I think it was a movie called Buffalo Rider, and it was from the 60s and 70s. Maybe Mr. Producer can bring up images of it. And then this folk music band did a voiceover of some of the, they sang the action of this guy who rode a buffalo, and it was in a movie. We sent my daughter specifically to a camp run by that man because I really liked that YouTube series. That came up. Ian and I were talking about that the other day. He said, "Oh, Sheila, have you seen these hilarious videos on YouTube?" I'm like, Ian, I should write a parenting book because I sent my daughter to that guy's summer camp.
Well, I'm afraid, Sheila, to answer your question, if those videos date back to the 60s, unlike you, obviously, I wouldn't have memory of pop culture back then.
There it is.
Guy out of Buffalo.
Oh, if you had the audio, you could hear the the recent folk music voiceover of Guy on a Buffalo. But anyways, we found out that this guy has a summer camp in Alberta, and I was like, "Yep, sorry, kid, you're going to that guy's camp because he rode a buffalo at some point." Okay, we've got one from, enough of my tangents. Okay, we've got one from Jesse Bickham. I hope I'm saying that right. $5 Canadian says, "I hope you are both well and staying safe." I am. I'm sure David is too. You both look great. Oh, thank you. Yeah, David's hat's growing on me, I've got to say. Can't wait for this dictatorial reign to come to an end. Down with Trudeau. All things that I cannot find an argument with. Lee McCamey says nothing, but gives us $10 Canadian. Thank you very much. We've got one from Ryan Rosti, gives us $20. "I just got paid from EI. Prime Minister Blackface is paying you whether he likes it or not. This is one of those times I will take Justin Trudeau's money. Thank you." We've got one from Paul Schofield, who sent us a lovely email the other day, David. I think you saw that. $10 Canadian says, "Sorry, guys, I got on late. Kamala Harris is a walking, talking example of what Mark Twain once said. Better to keep your mouth shut and be thought of a fool than to open it and remove all doubt." Yeah. I heard that she is in talks, or was at some point, to be Joe Biden's VP. What an unholy tag team that would be.
Yeah, and that's the sad thing about, opening your mouth and proving the otherwise. What she's saying, Sheila, is she's preaching to the choir when it comes to Democrats. They wouldn't see anything wrong with this. They would applaud what she's saying. That's how far left that party has gone.
Well, and it's not just that they're far left. They're so Trump deranged that if Trump calls it the Wuhan virus, then naturally that has to be wrong. That's just their logical conclusion. If Trump said it, it's wrong. Yeah. If Trump says take hydroxychloroquine because it saves lives, then it has to be wrong, and nobody should take it, even though it is saving lives. They just are so anti-Trump that he can never be right, and what he says must be racist by default because it came out of his mouth.
Yep.
We've got one from Basil, the Pump and Seagull, gives us $5 Canadian. "If you haven't become a member of the Canadian Coalition for Firearms Rights, you should do so today. Rod Giltaca is the perfect man for the fight." They are launching a charter challenge against the gun grab, and I wish them the very best. Sounds like they've got some pretty good lawyers, and you know what? We are doing Fight the Fines work to push back against these government overreaches, and I'm happy to see that the Canadian Coalition for Firearms Rights is doing their own sort of fight the gun grab, fight the fines kind of work. The more of us doing these civil liberties work, the better. By the way, where are the civil liberties organizations at all?
Yeah.
Where are they? I don't know.
and also for the CCFR, if they can educate the urbanites, I refer back to Andrew's piece of Doing Streeters in Toronto, where somebody, folks, thought that a 44 and a 38 meant that a 44 had 44 rounds and a 38 had 38 rounds. They didn't realize that was the size of the caliber of the firearm. So when you have that misinformation, I know, when he's talking very scholarly, right? You know, like, who needs 44 bullets in a magazine?
Well, especially like when Andrew said, "Oh, like, can you describe an assault weapon?" He's like, "I sure can." Like, he was just
oh my goodness,
so confident. And then it was like, what else is an assault weapon? Oh, you know, knives over 12 inches, hunting rifles. Like, it was like screwdrivers was next on the list, nail files, you know, like anything that somebody could get hurt with, that was going on that guy's list. Oh God, more Kavorka. We've got one from Annalisa S. I think she does go to your gym. She gives us $13.99 Canadian, says, Menzies, please tell me you wear spandex shorts to the gym. Yeah, baby.
Well, maybe the shorts when I'm cycling, but no, not the, you know, it's like, I like to say, you know, Sheila, I have a washboard stomach. It's just that I have about 25 pounds of laundry on it right now, which is why I go to the gym. But Annalise, are you that cute Australian I do see at the gym? Let me know about that. But then again, I don't think you are, because then you would know I wouldn't wear a spandex top, not at this stage of my life.
Also, I've met Lady Menzies. I feel like she is a little South African honey badger. So you shouldn't even be wandering into this territory. Just for everybody's good, mostly yours. We've got one from Craig McDonald.
I forgot about that when I cut that wrestling promo with Bashful Brian, right? But
oh,
you
God.
know, and you know what? I'll never forget the first comment that came in from a female viewer was one word: hot. What do you think about that, Sheila Gunn Reid?
I don't know. What about the time that you wore a bathing suit, a ladies' bathing suit?
Oh, yes.
Which I don't know where you found in a men's extra large or whatever you are. Do they sell those in the men's Big and Goonish stores or wherever you shop? But you wore that ladies' bathing suit to the sex-segregated swim, and then you leaned on the flutterboard and you sort of posed for the camera over and over.
Yeah,
and you had a rainbow wig. My God Almighty!
Well, this was in Flemington Park, a city-run facility, taxpayer dollars, that was closing it down at certain times for a Sharia swim. I mean, this is a very serious point. So no men allowed, and even if you were a parent,
digitizing the wrong part of the screen, they should be digitizing you.
I'll tell you, I cleared that pool out pretty quickly. Even the windows were covered up with paper, so that if you're a parent watching your daughter swim, you were not allowed to. And we just wanted to put to the test what trumps the human rights totem pole. Is it Sharia Muslim rights or trans rights? So I did my worst impression of Jonathan Yaniv, put on that pride-colored wig and put on that swimsuit. And I know you're shaking your head, Sheila. If you think I like doing this, folks, believe me, inside I'm dying. I am dying inside.
I don't know. Watching that, Jesus take the wheel. But I've seen some of your story pitches come in, and they involve a lot of costumes.
Yes.
Like a lot, they do. And so I don't know if you're dying inside or if you're dying inside because you don't get to do this as frequently as you'd like. Well, okay, we've got...
And one day, Sheila, maybe we should do a separate website, forbidden content, the stuff that never made it to air, like me going to the cat show.
I saw that video.
And no one else has, and probably nobody else will.
And I can see why. Let's carry on. We've got one from Craig McDonald. Gives us $6.99 Canadian. Menzoid, any thoughts on your old pal Chuck Adler's severe turn to the left of the political spectrum? Is it simply left postism?
This was Chuck Adler, he said? Charles Adler?
Yes.
You know what? Guys like Charles Adler, guys like Michael Corn, you know what? There's no sense thinking about how they are these days and how they've, switched to the other side, presumably for the almighty buck. I like to think, going back 5, 6, 7, 10 years ago when they were normalized and they weren't so worried about making, a living. I think that's what's driving this, quite frankly. I mean, when I was on the air with Charles, with Michael, it was wonderful. We had so much fun. And I think what happened, simply put, is when Sun News Network, which I was a part of, and of course our boss Ezra Levent, he had the best show of all on Sun News. When that went off the air, ladies and gentlemen, that was basically the last bastion of right of center broadcasting that you had in this country until a few weeks later when Ezra launched Rebel Media, and thank goodness he did. And it's kind of funny, Sheila, I'm not that much of a mercenary that because the platform has disappeared, I'm going to rebrand myself or reimagine myself or revision myself and become a leftist progressive just so that I continue to get a paycheck. I think I just go into another line of work, quite frankly, because I just can't, whore myself out to that degree just for a paycheck. So I think, I don't wish these individuals any harm, but I think because of the way the media landscape changed, they changed with it.
Well, for me, it feels so insincere.
Yeah.
Because if you've done something in your past and you look back and you say, well, that was me, but I've changed. You sort of generally look back with compassion and understanding. You don't look back with spite and vengeance.
Yeah.
And condescension the way these two do. And that's why I feel like it's so insincere. I feel like they are, like you say, paid mercenaries. They will do whatever it is. They'll be whatever they need to be as long as they get on air or get published. I'll use a personal example. I was a single mom. I wasn't living the most Catholic lifestyle. And, generally speaking, I'm a terrible Catholic as it is. But so when I hear stories of struggling single moms, I think to myself, I've been there. I've done that. I figured my way out of it. I don't look back with contempt and judgment because I understand. Now, I definitely found a better way, and I would love to show them a better way to live their lives. But I don't look back maliciously. And these two, they look back maliciously. And anybody who points that out to them, immediate blockaroo from them. We still got more super chats. And David, we have 4 minutes left in the show.
What? Look at this. We didn't even get to half the items again. Mr. Producer, what are you doing there? You're supposed to keep the show on track.
We talked about wrestling for like 25 minutes. I don't know.
That's true. We should do a wrestling show once a week and just get it all out.
I could talk about old wrestling all day long.
It has to be the old wrestling because right now you can't watch what they're putting out.
I'll bring out the old Hacksaw Jim Duggan t-shirts. I'll put my posters up. Hey-o! Okay, anyways, we're doing it again. We got to get through this. Okay, we got one from Zoltan Glass Shutter. Gives us $20 Canadian. Hello, fellow Canadian here. Hi, Albertan here. Albert first, Canadian second. Matthias Wurr gives us $5. A Canadian says, can you explain the idea of under 40 safe to work when chart shows they are 30% of confirmed cases and can spread the virus like the rest of us? Here's the thing, for me at least, if those people are out in the workforce and doing their job and taking precautions so that they don't spread the virus, if they're sanitizing their workstation, wearing gloves, wearing masks, whatever, the chances are that they're not going to spread the virus and they're not going to get sick from it. And if the older people are avoiding the stores or wherever the healthy people are working, for the most part, then there's no contact to spread the virus. Space Dave 2000 gives us $5 Canadian. How do you feel after the how do you feel after the dust has cleared? Will Wexit gain traction as it appears the East really doesn't care about the West? I think, the coronavirus, the Wuhan flu sort of sidelined the Wexit movement. But I think when all is said and done, that's going to once again rise as the West is expected to foot the bill for Justin Trudeau's, his just the money falling out of the tree on everybody, including the media and all of his pet causes during all of this. We've got one from Dee Dee, gives us $10 Canadian. Can I travel to Alberta from BC? Or will I be your next fight the fines victim? And yes, it is essential to me. I'm not here to give legal advice, but if you get in trouble, you know how to find me. Ken Tate gives us $20 Canadian. Menzies, we pronounce it Menzies, by the way.
Yep, that's correct.
Menzies. Never mind. Never mind, you are the best.
Thank you.
C182 OPR gives us $2 Canadian. Out of the closet Menzies, you're too spirited for sure. Ken Tate gives us $2, says $2 more for the spelling error, the best. I fixed it when I read it. We've got one from Valerie Lundgren, gives us $2 Canadian. Kirsten W, check her page. She talks a lot about Canada. Okay, I will do that. Like I said, I usually take notes and then I check things out after the fact. And David, it's 11 o'clock and we talked about nothing but wrestling and summer camp.
I can't believe it. Well, folks, thanks you so much for indulging us, and especially with Sheila Gunn-Reid going down memory lane. She has so many decades of memories after all. But in any event, Sheila's got that look in her eye. I better. In any event, we will see you again in this space on Tuesday. So on behalf of Sheila Gunn-Reid and myself, David Menzies, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you extra specially for all those who gave Super Chat money. We really appreciate that. In the meantime, stay safe and we'll see you on Tuesday.